with a JRPG inside of the Genesis space, right? And Phantasy Star is very influential and goes on to really influence most of the RPGs that are subsequently come out on pretty much every system across the board. So now I'll move on to DTX 180, who now made another RPG that absolutely belongs there, which is Shining Force 2. Shining Force 2 is a great game that is superior to the original Shining Force in pretty much every way. It has, a lot more of a kind of sandbox feel than the first one did, and in many ways, it's the first time that I remember really having that kind of an experience where there is this kind of open world mentality, where the sandbox really reigns. It felt a lot more open, and it was a lot of fun, and the systems in it were very good. The music was really cool in it. I really remember enjoying the music for Shining Force 2. It was just a kind of it really did a lot of things very well. And I think, again, you can't build a top 10 list for Genesis without putting Shining Force 2 specifically on there. And I know I'm talking a lot about RPGs here, so I'll move on, but I think it was surprising for me that both of those really were there, and they obviously belong there, that there were so many great RPG experiences on the Genesis. So thanks for reminding me of that. I couldn't agree more. Moving on to Sonic Rose, who I'm not surprised at all would contribute to this particular conversation. So this one, I guess, was particularly molded to your liking. Sonic Rose offers up Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and this was a tough one for me too, because I love Sonic 3, and I love Sonic and Knuckles, and I love the whole Knuckles experience. I love, for me, I played that probably the most of all of the Sonic games. It was just so much fun, and I thought it was a great improvement in a lot of ways, but in some ways it felt, when you got into Knuckles, something about that didn't feel like an organically true Sonic experience. Maybe I'm completely wrong about that, but and maybe I'll be corrected, but this is why I would put Sonic 2 higher than Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles, right? The whole concept. I would put Sonic 2 higher, and the reason why is because Sonic 2 seems to me to be the last of the very pure Sonic experiences, of which there are many different divergences. I'm not saying it means that every game that came after it is bad. It just means that they're a little bit divergent, and Knuckles felt like a bit of a divergence from that whole series and system. So, maybe I'm crazy, but I think it deserves to be there. I think it's absolutely top 10. I think it's got to be on the list. But as far as a pure Sonic experience, I would still put Sonic 2 over Sonic 3 and Knuckles. All right, let's see. Gilgamesh 909 talked about the Revenge of Shinobi. This was a great suggestion. Shinobi was huge on the Genesis, and I remember, as I recall, there were a number of different Shinobi games that actually were available in the arcade that I used to play, in one way or another. And maybe something's running through my head as alternatives to that. But in any case, because there were a lot of games that kind of duplicated the efforts of Shinobi, but weren't quite as good as Shinobi. And Revenge of Shinobi is probably the best in the series. I would put it at the highest. You want to talk about visceral action in a way that I don't think was very well accomplished since something like Ninja Gaiden, right? I mean, it just kind of hits all of those beats in exactly the right way on a superior, at that point, system. Shinobi is fun, it's engaging, it's fast, it's visceral, like I said, and it's got that kind of, how do I want to say this? It's got this kind of adolescent male fantasy kind of built into it. And this is what the Genesis does really well, right? The Genesis, in my opinion, kind of, because remember, Sega, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, right? I mean, they're trying to basically distinguish themselves from the kind of kiddie system that the Nintendo is, and as a result, they kind of plastered themselves into this kind of adolescence, rather than being, an expansive, video games can do a lot more than that. They kind of just strap themselves into adolescence, and I think that might have been one of their downfalls, but Shinobi, is a good example of how that can work, because it clearly is a game that is more adult oriented and is much more kind of action and fun than even something like Ninja Gaiden, which is a lot more about kind of stealth and kind of skill and things like that. Shinobi's much more out there. It's open. It's visceral. It's fun as hell. I love Shinobi, and you can always kind of go back to Shinobi. It's just like Gunstar Heroes to me. You can jump back into Gunstar Heroes and play anytime. It's still loads of fun. Couldn't agree more. Mog nominated a game that I'm really glad made this list, and it should be talked about, which is Shadowrun, the original that has so often been replicated and almost duplicated, but never quite reached the same kind of height that Shadowrun has had. Shadowrun itself has been ported into many different kinds of systems in many different kinds of ways and many different debacles throughout history. But the cool part of Shadowrun is that it really almost perfects a genre. This kind of top-down, it reminds me. I remember, for example, I played a game on the Commodore called High Noon, which was this game where you walk around it's not really top-down, but basically is top-down with this sheriff, and you go around and you shoot bad guys and make sure you don't shoot the ladies. Well, if you take that to its kind of natural progression into perfection, I would argue that Shadowrun really gets at that core mechanic. You're top down, you got a lot of weapons at your disposal, characters at your disposal, very similar to a lot of games at the time. And something that I think gets another great game for the Genesis, for example, is True Lies, which also is for the Super Nintendo and probably is superior in the Super Nintendo. But the point is, True Lies adopts the same kind of feel as Shadowrun, but it doesn't, it's more of an action-oriented game. Shadowrun is actually, I think, a lot more strategic and a lot more interesting as a result. The story's a lot better too. It's not a licensed movie title either. So, and another interesting thing about Shadowrun that I thought was awesome is that it's the same team that eventually went on to make Vector Man. And Vector Man is one of my favorite Genesis games. In fact, I'll talk about it in just a minute as one of my favorites. But so in other words, this is a very talented team. To be able to make what I believe to be the kind of perfection of form in this particular genre, the top-down action, strategy action game, right? It really is a talented team that then goes on to make Vector Man, which is a side-scrolling platformer that's just freaking awesome. So kudos to Mog for Shadowrun. I think that's a great suggestion. Definitely needs to be there as well. And lastly, I was going to talk about this just because I thought it was really funny and a really interesting story that probably needs to get told. And that is the Beer Ninja suggested Mutant League Football. This is why Mutant League Football is a great idea. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot, because I'm not saying Mutant League Football necessarily needs to be on the top of the list of the best games of all time. If you happen to have Mutant League Football and you had a Genesis, hey man, I bet it's kudos to you because it probably was one of your favorite games, and God bless you for that. What I would say is Mutant League Football is a really cool story because it's actually really fun. It hits at all the right spots. It kind of the Sega was always known as having the superior sports game experience, and by and large, I have to agree with that. Sega had a much better sports strategy than anyone else did, and this goes to continue on for a decade past this, or longer, right up until EA basically goes and kicks them out of the business by getting exclusive rights to the NFL, which was essentially one of the big things that jabbed, at the throat of Sega Sports. But in any case, EA created Mutant League Football. Now, why did EA create Mutant League Football? Because they put a crap load of work into the Madden 93 game, which is an awesome game as well. I remember playing that specifically. But Madden 93 took a lot of work to make. And so they thought, well, why don't we just skin Madden 93 with another game, and it could be something that has a very different look and feel, but really work the same kind of way. And that's exactly what Mutant League Football is. It's kind of skinned with all these crazy mutants and skeletons and, you know, disgusting characters and, you know, coaches with like cigars and anyway, it's crazy, crazy fun. It's actually a really, really cool game. If you have a Genesis or can get your hands on some kind of Genesis emulator to try out games, give Mutant League Football a whirl. It's actually a lot of fun, and I think there are actually several. I remember a game called Jerry Glanville Football, I think is what it was called, or Power Football or something. I don't know. No, it was Mike Ditka Power Football, and then there was Jerry Glanville something. Anyway, it was like with cavemen, and it was, you know, very like side-scrolling, and it was just awesome fun to play with friends, but a terrible game. Anyway. So those were your suggestions, among many others. Some of you mentioned some that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but they were secondary choices. I only went with your primary choices. Let me talk about some of the ones that I love the most, and then I'll pick my favorite, which I think will play right into what you guys have talked about. Vector Man is 100% on the list. I love Vector Man. It's probably, outside of Sonic, it's my favorite platformer on the Genesis. It's a lot of fun, and it goes to show you, a little later in the cycle of the Genesis, that there could be a game on the Genesis that I thought was superb to what was going on at Nintendo with the side-scrollers at the time. Vector Man is unique. Vector Man has a really cool look and feel to it that is very, very different than anything that's going on with the Super Nintendo. It's got a different artistic style, and they go to create what I believe to be a superb performance. If you were going to create that game for Super Nintendo, it would look very different, it would sound very different, it would feel very different, and it might even be better, I don't know, but I just know that it went to really extend the muscle of the Sega Genesis down the line, and it was not to be missed. Vector Man was awesome. Road Rash. There were several Road Rash games, but I'll focus on Road Rash 2, which was really, really fun, and a game I played quite a bit on the Genesis. Again, you know, this is one that I think, you know, wasn't necessarily that much of a unique experience, but the Genesis was just how I loved playing this game. It was just so much fun to play in the Genesis, and I got my most kicks out of it because it was kind of a brutal kind of game. And I remember playing it on the PlayStation later on. It was Road Rash 3D, I think. And you know, that was cool. It had like live full motion video and stuff like this with like bikers and stuff. But nothing like playing good old Road Rash on the Genesis. It was like that first game where you go, oh my god, I can totally like whip this cop with my chain off of his bike and then just drive off into the sunset. That is awesome. That kind of Grand Theft Auto feel about it is really, really cool. Castlevania Bloodlines, several of you mentioned it, but I thought I'd throw it in here too. So, you know, Bloodlines is the Genesis exclusive that I thought, again, was an awesome experience. It was probably my favorite Castlevania game to that point. And now realize I never played Dracula X. I'm sorry, Rondo of Blood. I apologize. You know, I never played Rondo of Blood because it wasn't available in this country at that time, as far as I know. And so that game really goes to inspire the whole Symphony of the Night Castlevania, which is just one of my favorite games of all time. And this game also has its roots in the same place. And so I really like the fact that you can kind of trace it. It's also a little unique with the two characters, the two possibilities, and the idea of having like the lance with the French character. I think he was French. You know, having the ability to kind of change the entirety of the game with that new weapon was really, really cool, and gave a different dimension to Castlevania than, you know, what was going on the Super Nintendo with the kind of singular Simon Belmont approach to that point. Obviously, that's been blown to pieces by now. There's all kinds of different ways to experience Castlevania, but in any case, at that time, it was my favorite. That's a great one to mention. Golden Axe. Golden Axe was one of those games I used to play in the arcade, but and I played it on the Genesis. It was just awesome fun, being able to ride the dinosaurs and like pick up potions, and it's very comical. It's very it's almost like a